Well, gentlemen, thank you both very much indeed for joining us. Very much appreciate that.
Great, thanks for having us, Steve.
So we're talking about the Institute for Community Police Relations. Tell us a little bit about how you set it up and why you set it up.
Sure, I can start. Going back to the fall of 2014, just post the Ferguson events that had occurred, we held a summit at the IACP conference. And at that summit, we had everybody around the table. We had community activists there. We had a number of the civil organizations. We had the ACLU there, NAACP there. Clearly a number of police chiefs there, large police chiefs, some from smaller agencies. And the discussion was about community police relations and what can we do better, what can we do differently, what can the community do. We wanted to create an atmosphere of transparency and accountability in policing. And as a result of that, we printed a report that came out of the summit, and then we took that report and said, what's the next step? What's the next logical step for us to do? And that was to stand up the Institute for Community Police Relations.
And how's it come into being?
The Institute for Community Police Relations was stood up officially in the spring of 2015 with thankful, generous support by the Laura and John Arnold Foundation, COPS Office, and the Motorola Solutions Foundation, which enabled us to bring that report to life, which enabled us to really dig into the President's task force report as well, and digging into those recommendations to enable training and technical assistance and resources to those agencies that want to adopt some of those tenets. So for us, it was about operationalizing both the plan that came out of the October 2014 plan as well as the President's task force. Because for us, for IACP, it's not good enough just to say that we need to do something. But if we want to do something, we're going to absolutely put resources behind it and make sure that we're doing it to the best of our ability to meet the members and the profession's needs.
What are some of the activities that you've kicked off with?
So presently we have a number of training keys that are developed specifically for police community relations that are available on our website, the ICPR website. We're doing other innovative stuff as well in terms of testing different ways to improve, close any gaps that may exist. Just this past week we launched an initiative between IACP and Howard University called Policing Inside Out, which is bringing together law enforcement officers and millennials of color to have a conversation about what works and what doesn't. So between the tried and true practices of what we've done already with training and technical assistance and using some of the funding to test innovative ways of engaging better police community, we have an interesting mix of things happening with the ICPR.
Because it's so important, isn't it, to try and rebuild trust?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, particularly now with the events that have occurred around the country and actually around the world. As Vince said, one of the things that we really try to work on is try to operationalize tenets of the 21st Century Task Force. So one of those is police legitimacy and how important that is to not only making sure that the community feels safe, but that the officers are safe. And I think intrinsically, if people feel like they're being treated justly, fairly, and impartially, then they're more willing to comply with the police. And that in turn keeps the police safe. I mean, we talk a lot about culture and leadership in the Institute for Community Police Relations, and we also deal a lot with officer safety and officer well-being.
And Michael Jordan's involved. How did that come about?
A surprise phone call, quite candidly. Michael Jordan was watching what was happening within the separation between police and community and wanted to do something about it. And to his credit, worked with a philanthropic advisory group to identify groups that could help him bridge that gap and groups that were meaningful in wanting to close that gap. And we received a note on a Sunday night not too long ago that there was an anonymous donor that wanted to contribute $1 million to something worthwhile. And that anonymous donor ended up being Michael Jordan, wanted to contribute to both the IACP's Institute for Community Police Relations as well as the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund. So focusing on both the community side and the law enforcement side.
That's a pretty amazing validation for your work, isn't it, really?
Oh, it was huge. It was huge because of the fact that that money could have gone to any entity in the law enforcement world. And what I think they saw was between IACP's work for 123 years on many important topics, along with the work that we've been trying to stay in front of this year dealing with police community relations, the ICPR was a perfect spot for Michael Jordan's personal $1 million donation.
My last question is, what's next? What are the next steps?
Well, I think that just in regard to the donation from Michael Jordan, what we've tried to do is leverage that donation. We've actually reached out to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. We recently had a meeting with them to talk about what we can do together. This shouldn't be just two separate silos that we take we get $1 million, they get $1 million, and we go out and figure out what we can do. So we're trying to work together to figure out what we can do together to best utilize that donation. And I think that what you're going to see is you're going to see the ICPR actually really start to grow. I mean, you think about in this country, we've got 800,000 officers and 16,000 agencies. So it's really hard to get to every one of those agencies and to try to operationalize some of these things that we need to do. But we're trying to give them the resources and the assets that they need to create better community police relations. And again, it goes back to trust and accountability, and that's what this is all about.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.